Hi, everybody. I'm Heather McElwee, the Randy and L. Van V. Dollar Jr. Executive Director here at Pittsburgh Glass Center, and welcome to the virtual opening and demonstration of the United exhibition. I'm joined here tonight with Priscilla Kar Yee Lo, one of the artists from the United, and she's going to do some glass blowing demonstrations for us here in just a minute. But in the meantime, we're going to get started with just a little chat, and Priscilla's going to tell us a little bit more about her and about her work. So to start things off, Priscilla, tell us about why you applied to the United or why you thought it was an exciting show.
I thought it was a very exciting show because I think often we forget the hardships and like the issues surrounding immigration. And as an immigrant myself, like growing up, I grew up in North America. When I was younger, there wasn't really much attention paid to like the hardships that we faced. And now, because we're trying to be more inclusive, a lot of that is coming to light. So I'm very excited to be a part of it so that I can talk about my heritage and how much it's changed since I've immigrated.
Yeah, so speaking of that, tell us a little bit more about your background and your family history as it relates to your work.
So I was born in Hong Kong. My parents and I moved to Canada when I was 8, and I've lived there since. We grew up in a very rural area of Canada, or I guess the suburbs, I guess. And so I was the only Asian person in my elementary school, and there was some racial tension when I was a lot younger, but as more immigration came to Canada, that sort of diffused a little bit more. But still now, especially with Hong Kong being the current political situation that it is, I feel like I've become a part of a diaspora community that no longer gets to go home. So it's interesting. And so I'm excited to make work about it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why you started making the Hello Kitties or the Kitty Army, and tell us about those.
So the Kitty Army is based off of a work written in ancient China by 4 female scholars, and they were based on the teachings of Confucius, and they described how to be a perfect, virtuous woman. And so it really brings me back to explore my cultural, I guess, background and historically where a lot of the stereotypes of Asian females come from. And so each of the kitties in the army represents one of the virtues that is important to have as a female. And then growing up in Canada basically made me go against all of that because I was allowed to be free and talk and say whatever I wanted to. And so really taking a look at using Hello Kitty as a symbol so I've always thought that stereotypes are not a false reality, but an arrested reality. So my job, I guess, as an artist now, it's become more and more important to me to really talk about my experiences as an immigrant and as a part of a diaspora community. And so I want to unarrest that symbol and take it back. So I want something that I grew up with and loving. I want it to not stop with just not having a mouth. I want to continue its story and maybe make a counter narrative so that it can say more than just a cute little thing that Asian girls collect.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that there are 4 virtues. What are the 4 virtues, and how did you choose to kind of represent each of those in your work?
So here is wifely appearance. Wifely appearance really talks about how you should basically be the plain girl because you're supposed to marry the mistress and not, or sorry, you're supposed to have the mistress on the side but marry the plain girl, right. So that she can be a good example to your children. And then wifely words are the ones with the F word written on them and the censor, and those are because you're not supposed to really be saying what you truly feel. You're only supposed to really be talking when you're spoken to. There's also wifely work, who has gears in her head, and that's to symbolize all the behind the scenes work that an Asian female is supposed to do within the household, and basically become the domestic assistant for the man. And then there's also, lastly, is like wifely virtue. Wifely virtue. So she's supposed to sacrifice herself and have love for other people and do everything for others instead of thinking of herself. And ultimately, they're all ruled by a kitty commander. And because the reason for all these virtues is so that you can be a good wife and a good mother. Right. And so the commander actually has a uterus that I 3D printed and casted and hot assembled. And lastly, the cadet is sort of my answer to all of this. And I feel like all of this is pre-written, and because it's culturally instilled in you, you're enlisted in this army without really agreeing to it. And so all the cadets have a contract inside, and it comes with a contract that you can break. And it's actually based on the naval contract back in the day. And so it's for you to come up with your own virtue. It's like the virtue is unknown, because really, I don't want to live based on these 4 ideals.
Right.
That's not who I am, and I'm sure, nor should I have to. So, that's the 6 of them.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I hope everybody will definitely come to see the United show in person and stay with us in our next hour, because we're going to go down to the gallery. We're going to actually take a look at all of the work in the gallery, including Priscilla's entire kitty army. So stick around for that. But coming up, you're going to actually make one of these kitties for us, right? So tell us a little bit more about that process and how that works.
So the 3D, all the kitties are made out of the graphite mold. The graphite mold is CNC milled.
Okay.
I was lucky enough in my undergrad to work with professors that were really in tune with making molds, and they really helped me out a lot. So I like reproducing work in multiples so that they have because I don't have the greatest upper body strength, so I don't make big things. I make multiple of little things. And so,
well, the army's certainly very powerful. When you see all 68 warriors together, it makes a bigger statement than if you were to just have one of each, certainly.
And I've actually used the mold a lot for, like, a lot of the work that I'm doing now still includes the mold. I made a series about the myth of the Asian mystique. And so as they bowed, they got more pink, and then they deflated. So this mold's getting a lot of use. So I'm stoked that I still have it, and it works great, and it's graphite, so it'll last forever.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that from a technical side. So I think some of our viewers might have seen folks blow into like a wooden mold before, which eventually wears down and the details get less crisp. But with the graphite mold, that doesn't happen, right?
No, it doesn't happen. And as long as you are nice to it and don't bang it around, and it'll come out crisp and the same every time. And so the new work is me distorting the kitties after they come out of the mold. So so I've been working on the head bowing or the head tilting, and then some pregnant kitties are coming down the work too.
Nice. Awesome.
So it's great to be able to have something that's standard that you can manipulate after when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. So where are you now? You said you were from Canada, but where are you now and what are you up to?
So I'm actually in grad school at Illinois State University. I'm studying under John Miller in Slate Grove, and Slate actually left, but it's been good to have him for the last year. So it's a 3-year program, so hopefully we'll see what happens. Yeah, stay tuned.
And you've been blowing glass actually all day. So tell us a little bit about some of the new work that you've been making or some of the new ideas. You mentioned some of the distorted kitties, but what else have you been trying?
So I've been doing a lot of experimental work with casting spruce pine to make it compatible in the hot shop. So I love the way that it devitrifies, and it actually looks like precious stone and like jade, which is very precious in my community or my culture. So using them to make goblets and different parts. Inspired really by Deborah, because Deborah talks about how imagine if it was girls that made all the stuff in Murano, right? So kind of taking that stance and really being inspired by her to make that kind of work. I've also been 3D printing some marini parts that I pick up then pull. Awesome. I know it's cheating and not
at all,
but it's the way that in order to get crisp, in order to get really crisp lines, it's been working. So we pulled some marinis today, and they turned out really well.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything else you want to share? Are you ready to get to work?
I think we're gonna make a yellow kitty.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right.
Let's get turn it over to Priscilla, and she's going to be assisted by Tate and Zach, and they're going to help narrate. So if you have any questions, just add them to the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them.
All right. We should be good. All right. Awesome. All right, guys, so it looks like the Priscilla just took a gather out of our furnace. Here at the studio, we have 2,000-pound furnaces. I run at 2,125 degrees Fahrenheit. Looks like after she gathered, she actually like popped a bubble all the way through to make what's called a collar. And with this, she'll probably go into a pickup box or a piece of equipment that's holding about 1,025 degrees, 1,050 degrees Fahrenheit, and just stick that color or a chunk of pure color right to that blowpipe. So you're just using the jacks right here, just kind of shaping that little bit of glass up, making sure it's nice and flush.
Yeah, let's pick up the yellow.
All right. Ooh. So Priscilla's just going to go ahead.
Fluffy it right before.
Say that again?
Fluffy it right before.
Yeah. So we can go right into that pickup box. You can see Priscilla stabs up that little chunk of color, and we're going to run right over to our reheating chamber. This guy's about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see her kind of slowly going back, or quickly going back and forth to not shock that color chunk and make it break.
It's yellow, you know.
Yeah.
Here, can you?
Yeah, I'll swing over this way. No problem. All right. So at this point, we're just going to take some time here and really start to heat up that color. It's going from that 1,050 degrees to 2,000 workable temp. Just takes a little bit of time for that to completely melt in. You guys will start to see that it'll glow. And we are working with a chunk of yellow glass. Even though it looks orange, or even whenever it's a little bit colder and it's not moving, it's going to look like it's red. Just because it's so intense with the heat that it's distorting the light so we won't see the color. Fancy.
You're so smart.
I'm a parrot. I hear it and I say it. That's all. So Priscilla's just going to use a graphite paddle, kind of push, maneuver that color around so she can get it into a nice, even, almost Q-tip shape. And this will just be ideal so she can gather clear glass over top of that. Yeah. Gotcha. All right. There we go. So after going into the heat and coming back out a couple times now, we have that whole chunk of color up to a nice working temperature so we can all get the whole thing all shaped up.
Pretend that you're cool with my imaginary hair.
So
So you guys can see that Tate and Priscilla are just chatting about the process and what's going to happen. Glass blowing is a lot like chess. We have to think about 5 moves ahead of what's going on, and it's just good that everyone can be on the same page. Because as soon as you have like a critical moment, like going down in the mold and someone doesn't know where to be, it just can throw a lot of monkey wrenches into the whole process. That's, yeah. We were blessed with the gift of gab.
Usually that's all my preheat my bowl in the dealer, but we're just gonna preheat with some hot glass.
Nice. Little, like a hot mop kind of thing. Oh yeah.
What?
Like a hot mop. Just kind of smear the glass all around. Yeah, sure, right?
Have fun, Tate.
Now Priscilla's going to go ahead and go into the furnace, and we're going to gather up a little bit of clear glass on top of that yellow. Every time we go into that furnace, we'll get about 2 to 3 times as much glass as what we had on that pipe. And now before that interior can start to heat up and start to move all that color, we're gonna give that whole thing a little heat, and then we're gonna use a wooden tool. This guy's called a block. And we're just gonna use this tool to start to disperse all that fresh, hot, clear glass. Priscilla's just putting some pressure up on that material as she turns the pipe, and that glass will take on the shape of the block. Oh, you got it? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right.
This is such luxury to have shoes that make cheese.
And that is a really important thing. Teamwork does make the dream work here.
Teamwork
Makes the,
dream work.
yeah.
That's the saying.
Teamwork makes the dream work. But now Priscilla's going to go ahead and just start a little bubble inside there. So the whole thing is solid, but we have that nice little shell of yellow over top that pipe, and you'll be able to see as she keeps the pressure inside that blowpipe. We're just waiting for the air to reach that heat and start to expand. And we don't see it immediately. We'll just give it another quick burst of air, and we should start to see that little bit of yellow start to grow. And because that was a chunk of solid color, sometimes the core stays a little bit hot, or a little bit cold, excuse me, and it does make it difficult for that air to pass through. Priscilla, just give it one more heat, and it should be enough to really let that air pass through. There we go. And you guys can see that thing just start to expand, fills out into that clear. And the idea of this color pickup color glass is to make it seem like that is solid yellow or solid blue or solid green. So now again, teamwork is really important whenever we go through this process, blowing glass. You guys can see that Tate just took a little heat on that, so Priscilla was completely ready with that newspaper. So we didn't waste time fumbling around with it. But that chunk of newspaper that she has in her hand, it works as the same idea as that wooden block. The glass just rides on a layer of carbon and steam. And that steam is creating a nice little bed to shape and smooth out that glass. That's something called the latent frost effect. Similar as whenever you have a frying pan in the kitchen and you throw a little bit of water in it. While it's hot, it starts to just dance around and that water won't sizzle. No problem. So we'll go through a couple rounds, starting to shape that glass up. Priscilla's cooling it down. That's right. So periodically, too, Tate is just maintaining a little bit of heat on that graphite mold just by using what's called a fluffy torch or a weed burner torch. Those guys can get up to around 2,000, 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, just enough to really maintain a lot of nice core heat in that mold so it doesn't chill the glass, it doesn't crack it if there are any thin spots, and also so there's no marks on that material. All right. So Priscilla, just let that glass cool down just enough. And whenever I say cold, cold is a pretty relative term. It's roughly about 1,000, 1,050 degrees.
Sort of relative around here.
Yeah, right. But we let that glass get down to that temperature to where it doesn't really move, and that allows us to go right back in. And again, gather about twice as much material. Oh yeah, right in the top. Just want a bone pick, get that thing out. So you guys can see Priscilla's gonna act pretty quick here with this little bubble, but sometimes whenever we gather up that glass, there can be little bubbles in the tank, or even just from like imperfections on the surface of that glass, we can get little bits a little stuck on there, and then that'll kind of yield a little pocket of air. But we can take that and a pair of tweezers and shears and just pick that bubble right out. Are you going to block it? Newspaper? What? For now.
Oh my god, I dropped another one.
It's all right. You good on the heat? You want me to take it?
I mean, if you want to take it, but I'm not fast to it.
It's okay.
Okay.
Don't mind. I won't go far. I think it'll be okay. I mean, I would, but you know, they just let it chill a little. Just let it freeze up. You got it. So we got a little bit of it. We're gonna grab it one more time. Try to pull that thing out. And now that Priscilla's got that and started to pull that a little bit, we'll take some shears and we'll just snip that little bit of glass right out of there.
All right, let's go for another heat.
I got you. So now that we have that little bit of bubble out there, yeah, the bit of glass is distorted, but that's okay. Just another heat and just a little bit of pushing and pulling, and we'll get that bubble right back to that round spherical shape. You're good. So Priscilla's going to take that newspaper and just start to kind of gently kind of push and pull that glass back into that round shape. Perfect. Now that we have it back in that round shape, we just have to get that bubble nice and even again, or fairly close to. Jack's on the floor. Yeah. All right. So as you guys can see, it doesn't really take too much, just another really good overall heat and just a little bit of air, and we're back to normal. Are you gonna do one more gather on that? No? Okay. 20. All right. All right. So now Priscilla's just kind of coaxing that glass into a cylinder shape that will fit down into the opening of that mold. That way she'll be able to really get a good overall heat on it and just lower it right in and blow. And that bubble will start to fill into all the nooks and crannies of the mold. So it looks like Priscilla is getting that thing ripping hot. Probably give it one more shape up. Perfect. So you guys can even start to see a little bit of a halo of clear glass around that. So it's really just from that compression of that newspaper, kind of working that bubble back out of the bit of glass. Going for it? All right. Sounds good. You all good? Yeah, we'll be off on the sides here. Don't even know. Okay, good to know. I'm just gonna wait. So Priscilla's gonna go ahead and lower that bubble right down into that mold. And now, still through that blow hose, she's just taking her time, really starting to blow as hard as she can. Try and fill the void that's in there. I think I'm gonna be okay. Just trying to blow.
A little bit more air. Can you like put
Yeah.
it on there a little bit? Just like as hard as you can. Yeah, I guess jack it down. Yeah. Sorry, this blow hose is a little.
Yep.
Can you reach the blow down? Yeah. All right. Let's release.
Good. So right there, we just added a little bit extra air. And from there, now we have our mold, blown bit of glass. Excellent. Excellent. Perfect. So you guys can see that that impression of the mold, it took on super, super well. It's just because of that graphite really being a sturdy material and that bubble being so hot. If Priscilla didn't drop that bit of glass into that mold without the temperature range that she was working in, then we wouldn't be able to catch the whiskers, the eyes, anything like that. And as soon as she came out, now we can start to see that she's working with what's called a Ranger torch. This guy gets a little higher, roughly about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in there. It's an oxypropane torch. This is just to specifically heat that area that she's touching with that flame. So it's right on the neck. So this way the head can start to move and bow. And now we're getting into the range of sculpting where we're more than likely not going to be fully turning the pipe, but we're just going to be working on two planes. So we're going to stop face up and then flip so it's face down. This is really common whenever you start seeing a lot of glass sculpting done, any kind of like interior sculpting or exterior. So now that they've gone into taking overall heat, came out and worked on that with the torch and done this process a few times, now the entire bit of that glass, especially that neckline, is going to be a little hotter. Whew. So we're going to take some time and just build up that heat just to allow that bubble to move further. In fact, you guys might be able to see that Priscilla is in fact starting to flip while she's in that reheating chamber. There we go. So we'll build up a little bit more heat right in that neck. So because that neck was a constricted point, it probably ended up being a little bit thicker. It doesn't have this far to blow out. So that's why it's just going to take a few extra rounds of taking a heat overall and then specifically heating up that neck. Again, after doing this process, how many dozens of times Priscilla has been able to see any of the little pitfalls that come up from this. She's able to work through that fairly quickly. So now she's really watching what's happening inside that reheating chamber. She's watching that glass starting to move. She's not rotating the pipe anymore, but instead just holding it. There we go. So now it's just a very subtle move done with gravity, just to allow that head to start to bow down. And as we go now, she's just trying to favor one side to another because that neck is still the hottest point, still wants to move. So we'll end up having that thing face down the majority of the time and then trying to flip it face up without getting it to move in the back. Whenever we blow glass, it's just always about heat management and control. It's knowing what parts of the bubble or anything that we're making, what's hot and what's not.
Show.
So now, just as we're finishing up here, Priscilla's using that weed burner, that fluffy torch, just to heat up the moil and that constriction line, a little bit of the feet of that Hello Kitty. That's just to make sure that now whenever we go to break this piece of glass off the blowpipe, that a crack will not form and travel up into the piece, or any kind of odd thing happens like that. All right, so it looks like we're on our last flash. Now, Priscilla is just getting ready to get a little bit of water and a pair of tweezers that we have. Tate's got a pair of Kevlar gloves on. So this way he'll be able to grab that piece of glass. Now that is still well over 1,000 degrees. There it is. But now, Priscilla will take that and just tap that pipe. Yep. So we'll tap that blowpipe with a bat, and now we have that piece separated from the pipe. And now we have to rush over to the annealing oven because that piece of glass is still cooling down. And we can't have it drop below about 1,000 degrees. Anywhere beyond or below 1,000, and we start to run into serious problems with shock. That box that we just went into is called an annealing oven, and that thing is holding about 930, 950 degrees Fahrenheit. And that piece of glass will sit in that box and come down to room temperature over about 12 hours. Perfect. We can make goblet, yeah.
Let's make a goblet.
No, it's absolutely, yeah. And without hesitation, immediately on to the next, because we still have about 20 minutes here and we will have a lot of fun now that the main demonstration has been completed. So we're gonna make one of the mermaid goblets?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So, we are going to be getting into a realm of glass making. This realm of glass making is stemware and goblets. One of the really fun things to do in the studio is try to learn how to make stemware, especially Venetian style stemware. It is highly sought after. Everybody loves to try and challenge themselves with it. It's super frustrating, but incredibly fun at the same time. But an amazing thing though, and recently done, is the cross-pollination between studios. So, as Priscilla had mentioned a little earlier, she does enjoy casting glass, so making molds. Gotcha. So making molds and being able to fill and pour glass in a kiln by throwing chunks and chips of them in, and then starting to bring them up to a high temperature, something of a 2,000 degree range, to melt them down and to fill that mold. So with those little casted elements, she's able to use the same type of glass that we have in this hot shop, which is called spruce pine. Typically in a fusing studio, you'll run into companies like Bullseye. Bullseye glass has a very specific coefficient rate of expansion, so it cools at a certain rate. The glass that we use in this studio is from a company called Spruce Pine. And Spruce Pine cools similarly to Bullseye, but not at the same rate, so they're not compatible. Now, in the studio, in the fusing studio and mold making shop, we can use spruce pine glass, whether it's clear or has color added to it. By using different metals, we're able to get different colors. We're able to take those bits of spruce pine and we can fill those molds and create little elements that we can pick back up in the hot shop and add them to a project that we have. So Priscilla has made a good amount of little Hello Kitty, what seem like little Hello Kitty lifesavers, and Hello Kitty mermaids. So they're just little tiny, about 2 to 3 inch high sculptures. And with that, We have them sitting in what's called a garage, little piece of equipment, right on the outside of our working area. That guy is also, much like the pickup box, it's running at about 1,100 degrees, somewhere in there, 1,000 degrees in that range. And those little elements just sit until we pick them up by using a little metal plate or a pair of what are called forks, or just a pair of like metal prongs that we can grab the material with. And from there, we can heat them up and add them to certain parts and pieces. Especially with stemware, we can make the goblet stems. And we can also make finials, like lid toppers and everything else like that. So in the process right now, Priscilla is working on a cup or a taza, a bit of the goblet where a liquid will be held. So you can see, instead of gathering up as much as we did, as for the kitty, now we only need one gather, and from there we'll be able to go through the similar shaping process, like blowing the bubble up, creating a constriction line. Now we can start to add little bits. I'm sure from here Priscilla's going to take this and we'll start to heat it up. We'll let it stretch so we can get a variety of different shapes, anything from cylinders, spheres, and cones. So you guys can see now Priscilla is just taking that bubble and letting it hang down to let gravity stretch that glass to elongate that cup. Go through a couple rounds of this, just again to really build that heat up. Once we have that stretched out, we still have a really nice working temp, so we'll take the pair of jacks, the bladed tool, and we'll start to ride the sides and add a little bit of air, and what's going to happen here is that that bubble will start to form into the angle of those blades. So you start to see a little bit more of a straight edge or a straight wall start to form. Oh yeah. So again, we don't have to make big moves. We're just taking some time to crisp up the edge, to blow up the bottom a little bit, just to make it a little bit more of a straight wall with a rounded base. So it looks like Priscilla's going to go ahead and do that one last time just to get everything perfect and in the exact shape that she wants. We also had a little hiccup with that blow hose that we were using. That tool is amazing. Just hooks from your mouth to the end of the pipe, but sometimes they tend to fall off, they tend to loosen, they tend to, so many problems with them. There we go. Cool. All right. So yet again, teamwork is a key component of goblet making. Timing as well. So what you're going to see now is Priscilla is going to add on what's called or known as an Ebolio. This is essentially a little glass spool that's going to just create a little lift and separate the stem of the goblet from the cup. And that's going to be done by bringing over a fresh bit of glass. And now this bit is going to be grabbed. The pipe itself will be grabbed, the bit will fall, and then Priscilla will tag it on and then spool it around that cup. So from there, we'll be able to use the backstrap of the jacks to press that material. And as we start to create a constriction and squeeze that waste or that spool into that glass, Tate's going to use a wooden paddle and start to push that bottom section. So then we get two nice little discs and a bit of a cylinder in between. What's up? Two parts? Okay. All right. So Priscilla, just let me know that we're going to make this goblet in a couple different parts. So what'll happen now, instead of taking the cup and then building the rest of the goblet right off of that blowpipe, we'll end up taking that cup. We're going to add what's called a punty, or a small little bit that will be attached to the bottom of that Ebolio. And from there, we're going to break that cup free from the blowpipe, and then we're going to finish that open vessel. Now, a lot of our terminology is Italian because glass blowing art, or art glass in America, generally stems from Italy. The word punti refers to bridge in Italian. And you guys can see that little bridging effect that's going on right here from the blowpipe. The piece is acting as a bridge between the blowpipe and the punny. So you guys can see there at the end, Priscilla just thermally shocked that glass by adding a little bit of water right to that constriction line. And because it's a constriction, it is a weak point and it will want to snap, it'll want to break off right there. And if we have a really nice constriction line, then everything will be really clean and we'll be able to get a really beautiful sharp edge with no little bits coming off of it. I gotcha. Yeah, that's right. Huh? Oh, yeah.
Right? I just, I do not trim in public.
All right. So now we're just building up a lot of heat right in the top section of that cup. So it's going to use the blades of the jacks to go inside. I'm going to use a wooden paddle to start to even that out. And we have a tool called a soffietta, or little puffer, that's going to go right inside the lip of that bubble and start to puff that glass up. Same thing again. All right.
I'm just going to go for it.
Okay. Thank you. So again, that soffietta or little puffer, it's just to inflate the midsection of that cup and the top without leaving tool marks. Because if we were to stick metal blades, even waxed metal blades inside of that bubble and start to just rip that cup open like Priscilla's doing now, we're going to scar and we're going to kind of mark up the inside of that glass. You can see after Priscilla started to really rip that bubble open, she then went on the outside and started to force the wall of that cup down with those blades. So you guys can see now we're just kind of finalizing the shape of that glass just by taking those blades, riding the outside, and starting to press and turn quickly. By pressing, we're pushing down any high spots, and by turning quickly, we're using centripetal force to kind of spin that material out and start to form a nice, even wall. Whether it's a straight wall or a taper. There we go. That's in most goblet makers, any kind of beginner goblet maker, or anyone who has not committed 20 years to making cups. We always have a good saying in that it doesn't spin on a shelf. It's totally fine.
Just don't turn it.
Yeah, just don't turn it.
My goblets all come pre-turned.
All right. So now that those final touches have been put on that cup, Priscilla's just going to take some time and put a little extra heat into the punny. This way we'll be able to separate that punty from the base of the Ebolio. This is using a pair of straight shears to just chill and constrict that glass down. If you just do it right on the bench, yeah. We don't have nice things here. So you guys can see just with a little tap and a little vibration, that'll travel right down to that cold constricted area, and that will break that bubble and that goblet top right off of the punty. And now Tate had carried that right over to the garage, as I had mentioned earlier. That's essentially a little pickup spot. So we have casted, spruce pine casted elements sitting in there. Those little lifesaver Hello Kitties and the little mermaids, and also now the goblet component. Along with that too, we do have pieces of equipment sitting there, whether there are forks or passerellis, like I mentioned earlier. Those are just being preheated because we don't want to touch cold metal to lukewarm glass. And as we zoom in here, you guys will be able to see some of those little Hello Kitty lifesavers in that left-hand side. And then also some of those mermaids right in the back. And what Priscilla had mentioned a little earlier, you can see how they look a little hazy. That's from devitrification. So it almost looks like precious stone or a little bit of an opal glass.
All right, stop with a stringer.
So now from here, we're going to create the foot of the goblet and add on the stem. So Priscilla just took that fresh bit and started to shape it and form it. And as we use the blades of the jacks to create a little bit of a patty, Tate's going to push with that wooden paddle. And that'll just create a nice little disc, or what's called a Maria or a Maurice. And with this little disc, we'll be able to drop a bubble of glass on there to make a blown foot. Typically, blown feet are something that you see in Venetian Venetian goblets. You don't see it too much more in things like Scandinavian style glass, which is all solid glass that's then dripped onto the bottom of a piece, and then it is squished. It's actually flattened out and disked into that foot. As Priscilla waits with that disc, Tate is going to gather up on a blowpipe, and we're going to create a little bit of a bubble that has a bit of a gooseneck in it, and then we're going to drop that right onto that little button of glass, that little Maria. What are you guys going to put on this?
Mermaid?
Mermaid?
Mermaid.
All right. It's going to be a mermaid goblet. Just trying to think of some Little Mermaid jokes. I don't think that that's, no, they're to the puns. No, I'm totally out Disney. I have no idea.
Well, it was like my interpretation of like a serpent goblet or a
Ah, I like that.
Hello Kitty.
Yeah. I like that. That's cool.
Right?
Yeah, that works well.
That's why I like shouted out to death.
I like it.
My inspiration. Next thing I'm going to do is make Hello Kitty Chanel. I'm not yet. I made a turkey leg the other day.
Yeah, right. Start making those chandeliers like, just do the bows. Oh, I could see it. It'd be amazing. Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, Fountain of Youth. Yes. All right, so now the Tate has formed that little bit of little blown foot. We're gonna heat it up, and then we're just gonna drape this right over. Just swinging that thing out, letting it drop. See that Priscilla just placed that right down on that little Maria, and now has snipped that bubble clear of that blowpipe. So now this is really where we want to utilize the heat, and we only want to do this in a certain amount of moves. Now we have a lot of core heat and a lot of time to work with this bubble. You guys can see that Priscilla's going to pick and pull this thing out to elongate it, use those jacks to start to squeeze and create a constriction line. Again, the constriction's a weak point. So we'll be able to take that constricted area, squeeze it, cool it, and then send a little vibration through the little piece of waste glass that we'll have, and that's going to break open that bubble, so now we have an opening. There it is. We just bring in like a little 5-pound sledge and just, so delicate, yeah. Yeah.
Knock it out of the park.
Yeah. So now that we've cooled down that little opening, we want to take some time and build up some heat. That way we're going to be able to create a little folded lip on this. Now Priscilla's going to fold the lip for a couple reasons. One, it's the aesthetic of it, because it just adds that little bulge right at the bottom on the rim, but also too, it's for added protection. Now if you are starting to drink from one of these cups and you have a little too much, you might set it down a little bit too hard. And that little folded lip is going to add as a little bit more of a kind of protection to not shatter that foot. Now that Priscilla has started to open that thing up with that fold, we can start to see now the heat is built up. We'll be able to rip that foot open and start to flare it. And there we go. Now with that full bit of heat sunken in, be able to kind of push that disc flat, and then Priscilla will go on the inside closer to her and start to push that material away, kind of flaring and fluting that foot as Tate rides the back with that paddle. And now that they're good, they're going to go ahead and they're going to punny up to this foot.
Pointy and slightly dusty.
Slightly dusty. All right. Excellent. So Tate's just going to form up that punny. Roll it on the ground just to prevent it from sticking in that one area. And Priscilla's going to go ahead and stick that right to the base. And then we'll go ahead, once that is centered, we'll start to break that bit of glass off of the punny that she had started with. So now we are left with this whole thing just flipped over. Basically has Missy Elliott the foot, flipped it and reversed it. That's right. All right, so now Priscilla will take some time and just center this whole thing up. Perfect. And now we can go ahead and bring over a little bit. So we're going to make another Ebolio right on the base. So again, Tate will bring over that bit. We'll stick that right on. Priscilla's just going to wind that bit of glass right around. And now they'll go ahead and form that little Ebolio right off the foot. Priscilla, what color mermaid would you like? Whatever? Sounds like a great color. Perfect. Yeah, buddy.
I'm going to flash, and then if you can flash after me, then we will torch the thing, and I will flash again.
So you guys can see this is somewhat of a dance going between the gaffer and assistant. Gaffer being the one creating the object, the assistant helping out. So as Priscilla has torched that Ebolio, Tate has come out and he's going to torch the base of this little mermaid just to get it hot enough so it'll really fully stick. And then we're going to go ahead and Priscilla's going to grab that with a pair of tweezers and we're going to stick that right to the Ebolio. And now that casted piece is now the stem of our goblet. So it'll take some time and really just start to keep that thing nice and warm. Start to heat everything up. Fully make sure that it's fused on there. And now similarly, as we added the Ebolio, Priscilla's going to add another little glue bit to the head of this mermaid. So that way we'll be able to add that cup that was just made.
How did you make it all? You moved it on there, didn't you?
I what?
Tate, like,
He's just adding bits, as he went. But now again, just like the Ebolio, I'm going to take this and we're just going to stretch this, wind it on very slightly, create a little pad. And now that pad is going to be torched. Yeah, you do. You do. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, just flash it.
You want me to flash it?
Yeah. So Tate will bring out the cup. And now similarly, just like the stem, we'll go ahead and bring that cup right over. Priscilla's going to grab it and stick that right onto that fresh glue bit. And now we're left with that cup fully made. Now that we have everything attached, now Priscilla just wants to make sure that everything's fairly straight. Which looks pretty darn good. And now from here, we're just going to build up heat or make sure that all of that glass is in a good working temperature.
just don't turn it.
There we go.
We're going to do two more, one safety flash. Zach's nodding in the background. Two safety
Oh yeah,
flashes.
just two safety flashes. Can never be too safe. Safety third though, right? I guess so. It's not what we're looking for in this whole process. At the very end here, we want to make sure that everything is a little bit warm, everything's moving very slightly. And then we're just about to finish this. So what Priscilla's going to do, we're going to add a little bit of water right to that connection with this little surgical squirt bottle. And this is going to thermally shock that connection. As that is, we're going to tap, and that will break that bit right off. Now Priscilla's using a little map gas torch. That way we're able to smooth out that little rough spot where it was just broken off, and we'll go right over to our annealing oven again, holding at 930 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will now come down in about 12 hours. Okay. Think so. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for coming to our demonstration here. Hope to see you guys whenever we're back up, fully running.
Okay, hi everybody. You tuned in the last hour, you know who I am, but in case you didn't, I'll introduce myself again. I'm Heather McAwee. I'm the Randy and L. Van V. Dollar Jr. Executive Director here at Pittsburgh Glass Center. We're really excited that you're joining us for the virtual opening of our new exhibition, The United. It's an exhibition that's been in the works for quite some time, and we're really thrilled to be presenting it to you. So even though we are just virtual tonight, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that you can, in fact, come see the exhibition in person starting tomorrow, Saturday, October 3rd. We'll be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then from then on, you can see it anytime that we are open, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the exhibition will be on view until January 24th of 2021. So you have plenty of time, no excuses. Please come see this amazing exhibition in person. I'm joined tonight by our incredible curator, Johanna Lasner, who I've had the privilege of working with for the last 2 years as we put this show together. I'm going to turn it over to her to say a few words.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, everyone. My name is Johanna Lasner. I am an independent artist and curator. I am based in White Rock, Canada, and I'm so honored to be here and be the first one to actually open this project with you all. The United is an exhibition presenting critical and very incredible glass art by 13 artists, one being a pair, and they are coming from different backgrounds and geographical perspective, but yet they're all presenting together the complexity of the topic of immigration. I would like to start to say that this project is relevant and important because we are living very important times. It's a pivotal time in history. We are going through so many different core issues: economic depression, xenophobia, systemic racism, migration, planetary emergency. All these issues, plus immigration issues as well, they are creating so much pain and separation and loss in our communities. So we think that it's very important to have a response to just not as as members of our cities and our work, but just because we have to just be responsive and support to the things that are affecting us. I also would like to think that this project came about because we thought that it was necessary to bring a space where meaningful conversations of these core issues can happen. And we see art as a bridge, as a bridge that can answer some of these questions, but also in a critical way and bring openness, but also perhaps offers time, I would say, opportunities for dialogue, for learning, for us bringing ourselves together to our reality and to those that are suffering. And like I said, immigration is a very difficult topic right now because immigration systems are in crisis. It's affecting us all of us, whether we are immigrants ourselves or are descendants of immigrants, but more so because we're members of communities that are diverse. And we find that that's very important to bring art as we talk about this with Heather, bring art as a as a medium that we can reconfigurate. It's from that is from their status and function that in normal how the tradition had made it to from the passive role to a more active role. And we want to see that. And these artists are amazing. We have been extremely fortunate to have an awesome group. They each come from, like say before, different backgrounds, but especially they all have their own migrant stories and those of their ancestors. And their work is actually part of those stories. These stories, this journey have shaped their identity, but also the art that they produce. And we're excited to show it to you, to share with you what they have done specifically in this topic. And yeah, thank you.
One of the other things that we're really fortunate here in Pittsburgh is that we have some amazing organizations that work with immigrant populations. And so we partnered with some of them as part of this exhibition. And some of them are with us tonight. So I'm really excited that Leslie Eisenman and Jaime from Jewish Family and Community Services are with us here tonight, as well as Karla from City of Asylum. So let's hear from Jaime and Leslie first. You guys can just tell us a little bit more about what does JFCS do and what kind of programs they offer.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm Leslie Eisenman, Director of Refugee and Immigrant Services at Jewish Family and Community Services. And thank you, Valerie and Paige and the Pittsburgh Glass Center for inviting Jaime and I to speak tonight. And thank you to the artists for capturing the immigrant experience through your creativity. And your art and exhibits like this make it possible for more people to learn about the immigrant experience and build connection to our common humanity. So JF&CS was founded over 80 years ago, and helping refugees was a core service. And today, JFCS is the area's largest resettlement agency, serving refugees of all religions, races, and nationalities. And we've greatly expanded our services to not just refugees, but vulnerable immigrants as well. So I'll share with you the work we do in my department. And when I say the work we do, I mean our passionate caseworkers who are humanitarians, along with volunteers and interns and AmeriCorps interpreters and many, many community partners. And even during COVID-19, we're hard at work welcoming and serving refugees and immigrants. So I'm going to focus on our resettlement work, but like I said, we have expanded to serve any refugee or immigrant that's in Pittsburgh. So who are refugees? They are immigrants because they intend to come to this country to live permanently, but they're a subset of immigrants. They are people who have fled their country for fear of their lives. And many of them are women and children, and there are over 20 million registered refugees in the world right now. To meet the legal definition of being a refugee, a person must be outside of his or her country of nationality. They have a well-founded fear of persecution due to race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. And refugees, unlike other immigrants, receive approval overseas. So when they come to the US, they're 100% legal. They've been screened for security purposes multiple times over multiple years by as many as 13 federal agencies before being approved to the US. So who gets to come? The President of the US and his cabinet make that decision. They decide which populations come. In fact, yesterday, the President announced that the maximum number of refugees for next year will be 15,000. This is the lowest number since the US refugee program was founded in 1980. The average has been more like 95,000. The current populations coming to the US are from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Bhutan, Burma, and Afghanistan. Most of the people have limited English and come with very little material wealth, but many have spent decades in camps, refugee camps, but they bring other forms of wealth, rich arts and culture, delicious food, appreciation of community and their elders, and tremendous resilience and resourcefulness that will serve them well as they transition. They make the difficult transition to life in America. So what do we do? Upon travel notification to Pittsburgh, we secure housing and provide basic furnishings. We meet families at the Pittsburgh airport and welcome them and bring them to their home. And over the next few weeks, there's a whirlwind of activities connecting everyone to doctors and school, public benefits, English, and other social services. Our staff, again with volunteers, provide cultural orientation to life in America. We talk about our school system, our healthcare system, US laws, how to take the bus, what things cost. And early on, we start to talk to the adults about jobs. And the US refugee program provides a very small amount of initial support. And at about 4 to 6 months after arrival, someone in the home needs to be working. We provide extensive support on how to obtain and retain employment. So whether they come with little English and little formal education to high skilled or English speakers, we're by their side through this process. Jobs are usually pretty basic to start, and as people gain US work experience and English, we can help them move on. The transition to life in the US is hard, and COVID-19 is making it even harder, but we're still going strong. 5 families arrived this month, 3 from the Congo and 2 from Burma, and we're expecting a family of 5 in October. Given the low numbers, we're hoping we can resettle about 100 people in the coming year. That's about 25 families. So what is success? Early on, we talk about people just understanding life in America. We sleep well at night knowing they have a roof over their head and their basic needs are met. And it's been wonderful to see families over time, over the months and years, and grow roots in Pittsburgh, where the parents are buying cars and homes, starting businesses, moving up in careers, exploring their artistic side, and kids graduating high school and going to college. And we can't do this work alone. So if there are ways to help, we need connections to landlords and employers. We need donations. We use Sign Up Genius to let people know exactly what we need. So I'm sure the folks at the Pittsburgh Glass Center can connect you to us if you're interested in donating. Volunteers help folks practice English or work with kids on homework and enrichment. We have a new digital literacy program where we're helping adults use apps on a tablet to help them with English, learn about jobs and financial literacy, and importantly, advocacy. If you think it's important for the US to continue welcoming refugees, let your representatives know. And lastly, if you see refugees or immigrants in your midst, offer them a smile of welcome, because like most of us, our families were once refugees or immigrants too. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me as well? Maybe not.
Yes, we hear you.
I can hear you.
Great. Great. Thank you, Leslie. That was very, very well put. And you've talked a lot about JFCS, so I can keep my comments very brief and concise and talk a little bit about our Immigration Legal Services Department. The work that we do in the Immigration Legal Services Department is to provide individuals and families with immigration representation. So that means family-based immigration petitions to help bring a fiance or a spouse or children to the United States. When people are in deportation or removal proceedings, we help to represent them and hopefully find a way to keep them here in the United States. We help refugees whenever it's time for them to apply for their permanent resident card and later naturalization so they can become US citizens. We help immigrant victims who have experienced hardship in the United States, either as a victim of a crime or human trafficking or domestic violence to sort out their visa independent of their abuser. We have an unaccompanied children's program where we serve children who are in ORR detention who need Know Your Rights presentations and legal screenings to see what their options are to perhaps stay in the United States. And then we continue to serve them as they're released from the detention centers locally and in other areas throughout the United States. We handle approximately 2,100 cases of representation per year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for those of you who've had any experience or exposure to the US immigration system, you'll know that it's not a quick and fun experience. It tends to drag on regardless of whether you're renewing a green card or you're bringing someone from another country. It can take years and years to navigate that system. So we are so happy and excited to be here doing this work and helping people when it's the most critical time, in my experience anyway, in the United States to have this help available. How can you help with the Immigration Legal Services Department? There are a few ways. You can volunteer to come to one of our legal clinics and help someone fill out a citizenship application or a green card application. You can come to the office and help answer the phone and answer questions. You can help us to write stories and interview some of our clients to tell their stories when they're not able to. Or you can follow us on Facebook and check out our website. If I can put a little plug in, it's jfcspgh.org. What is the goal ultimately for both Leslie's department and mine? In my opinion, our goal, the highest way that we can help people is to create new Pittsburghers, new citizens, new permanent residents, and to help people get beyond their immigration status issues so that they can work on their American dream. So thank you all for having us here tonight. It's been really a pleasure to see the demonstration and to learn more about the work that you artists are doing. Thank you, and I will now turn it back over to you all.
Thank you.
We are very happy to be joined by two of the jurors that helped me select the works for this exhibition, Karla and Jaime Guerrero. Karla is the program manager at City of Asylum, also a multidisciplinary Chicana poet and artist. Jaime Guerrero is a sculpture, glass artist, and also a mixed media artist. Coming from, really, he's from Los Angeles, but lives and works in Pittsburgh. Thanks so much for joining us. There is anything that you guys would like to add to our conversation?
So I am the daughter of an immigrant, and by default, I am also an immigrant. So I was brought to the United States at a very young age. I've experienced a lot of the duality, and I understand some aspects of the immigrant experience, but I don't necessarily understand a lot of the hardships, but I have a lot of empathy towards the people that do immigrate and do experience injustices in their journey. So it's been my honor and my pleasure to be a judge in this exhibition that is very urgent in this time. And also I work at City of Asylum, which is a nonprofit organization that their main mission is to protect and celebrate and defend creative freedom of expression. So my work directly correlates with like my own personal ethics that have to do with freedom of expression and a freedom to live and to survive and to persevere and to pursue your own dreams just as a human being in the world. Unfortunately, there are borders, and unfortunately, people, feel that they need to cross them in order to succeed. But in an ideal world, art can bring us together and tear down those borders.
Thank you, Karla. How about you?
I really had anything to say. I'm just happy to be part of this. Being able to jury the exhibition and look at these amazing artists' work and where they're coming from and what they're trying to convey with their work. And it's been a very exciting and interesting process for me. So I'm really just glad to be here and be part of it.
Thank you. We are so thrilled to also have our artists with us. Some of them are both, some of them are joining us via Zoom, and we have a couple that are here with us in person in the gallery. So we thought that it would be nice for all of us to hear them talk about their work. And we are going to try to, all three of us, walk around the gallery and take a look at each of them, their pieces. We're going to start actually first with right here behind me. We have Alexander Lozano. I understand Alexander is with us. Alexander, thanks for joining us. Can you please talk to us about your work?
Yeah, of course. So a little bit about myself. This was kind of made recently through the last years of my BFA. So a lot of thoughts kind of going on. I had focused a lot on just materiality and creating this new material, kind of like the flexibility and allowing me to sew it. But I just kind of had like one last thing to say before I graduated, and something that kind of really hit me heavy was kind of going back and thinking about like my apathy. I would say I felt like I had been apathetic and not feeling or looking around and seeing what was happening in the world. And you know, a few news stories had come back out about a lot of kids in detention centers. And so I think that really made me think back into my own life and think about my parents and their story, coming from two parents that were immigrants. So, you know, coming from, I would say, very little or low income, I didn't think about that so much now in my later years. So I kind of really wanted to show more emotion and not just so much my materiality, I would say, as much, and kind of do something that I would say broke some of the rules that were kind of given to me in like art school and all that. So I just kind of put it all out there, and it just kind of deteriorated more and more. And in some aspects, to me, it feels like it kind of progresses in the way that I would say some of our, not political affiliations, but maybe some of our political struggles to kind of give equality to everybody and to even immigrants, and making sure that they're protected. You know, some of the things in life sometimes are in you know, finding our ways, we don't know that we have protections. We don't know that we have rights as humans. And it takes other people to tell us that and to share that. So I think kind of the heart of it is just trying to expose others to understand that, you know, sometimes we just have to watch out for our fellow humans, let them know that they have rights, and let them know that there are people out there that are watching out for them. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Now we're moving on to Sandra Bucky. She is a Brazilian photographer, our only based Pittsburgh artist. Sandra, welcome. Can you please talk to us about your work?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. So I made two pieces for the United exhibition. One is Get Closer, is these two pieces that are sculptures, and it's inspired by my question of how much we are shaped by the environment we are and the family we were born in, and our religions, our races, our nationalities, and what if all that, and what if all that is in our DNA or not? So for me, I realized that we have to be open to experience people's difference, and the only way to really understand who people are and what they have inside as their essence is to get closer to them. So then you can remove all the noise of stereotypes and really get to know the people. And then And then this other piece is Seeking Nowhere. It's a combination of 35 photographies. They are 5 different horizons, repeated 7 times, and with different interactions with glass. So my inspiration was my experience coming from Brazil to US, and also to think about when my father left Hungary to go to South America after the World War II, and how we actually don't know what is going to happen when you make this big change in your life. And even though you can go from one place to another place, each of us have different experiences. So the experience becomes unique for each piece.
Thank you, Sandra. And now we're moving to May Zarakat. This piece, first of all, May cannot be with us, but I'll be explaining a little bit about this piece. It's named the Three Stupas, and basically it's based on the 15th to the 20th century Thai ceramics. And it's inspired on the stupa is this structure that exists on most burials and sacred monuments from the Buddhism tradition. It's an interesting piece, not only because she is basically one of the artists that utilized our residency at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and that fascinates me how some of our artists don't come from a glass discipline, and especially her, since she's very multidisciplinary, and just to see how the process and on the residency, but also with the immigration focus, help her to reproduce this work. Jaime, would you like to add a little bit?
Sure, I think this is a great example of how, I mean, all of these artists bring something from another country, and they kind of, and, you know, they bring their culture into the art that we're seeing here today. This is a great example. Somebody kind of integrating her culture into the artwork, and you know, bringing something fresh and new and interesting to the glass community, and basically to this exhibition as well.
Yes, thank you. And so we're going next. We're going to explore the work of Ibrahim Batsri. This is a very personal piece for the artist. It has basically, it's composed by 2 elements, and it's really a piece of gratitude for the freedom that he acquired as a refugee here in the U.S. But it also you can observe, you can feel. It's a very emotional piece. There are a lot of elements that bring memories from the time when he lived in Iraq as a child, just before he left, which was around 7 years of age. So once again, we can understand the process of the lost and the adaptation to a new culture, what this means to all migrants.
Karla, would you like to say something?
Well, I suppose, yeah, I'm really admiring the different elements that the artist has used, and especially the connotation of the fence and the barbed wire and the sense of entrapment, and then like the direct contrast of the elements being freed from the fence. And you can really get the sense of the emotional narrative, perhaps personal, but also very universal, which is one of the reasons I really enjoy this piece.
We can probably move here to this section. We have the works by Krishna, and I believe she is with us. She's joining us. Excellent. So we're gonna, thanks for joining us. And
Hi.
hi. Can you please talk to us about your work?
Of course. I'm Tali Grinchpan, and I live in Walnut Creek, California. I moved to the United States from Israel, and I come from a very long lineage of immigrants, and I never thought I will be one, but somehow I found myself in the United States and could really relate to the immigrant experience, and the one that my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents went through, each of them in a different country, starting a new life. And here I am going through the same thing again. And it was unexpected. And through this experience, and also throughout the years, meeting other immigrants and speaking to them about their own experiences as immigrants in the United States, that inspired me to create this work, which at this time felt very relevant and felt like the right time to bring up my own personal experience as well as other people's experience of the immigration process. And I work with pâte de verre, which is a casting technique using powders, glass powders. And each work is actually talking about a different aspect of the immigrant experience. And so this piece, for example, is talking about crossings and the experience of crossing an ocean or through the air, or however immigrants go through their own experience of transporting from one place to another. Yeah, it's very personal, but also not.
Great, thank you so much, Lenny. Now we have here a piece by Alison Laurie. Unfortunately, again, she can't join us. She lives in Northern Ireland, and I guess the time zone is a little difficult. This piece really, first of all, let me say that she is very invested in research, the Irish diaspora, and she is also interested in textile, especially clothing, as a very intimate item connected to life and the person. Here we've got some works on glass, but also some found objects added to it. And this particular piece is based on the Belfast Girls. She is going back to like the big Irish famine, where massive of, the Irish people had to leave because of starvation. And this is, you can see in a form of letters, she has the names of each of the girls that were part of this group of orphans that were forced to leave the country. And I believe they were sent to Australia. I would like Jaime actually to help me out with the glass part.
So this is also pâte de verre. It's just a very delicate process which kind of helps illustrate the piece that's very fragile, basically made from little bits of glass that are fused together, not fully melted, so it still has a lot of that. It keeps a lot of that texture. So it's a really interesting use of pâte de verre to kind of suggest clothing. I think it's a very successful and very powerful piece.
Thank you. Now let's go across. We have Naira Albushi. She is again a multidisciplinary artist. She's working a little bit video. We also have glass. Naira, we know that you're joining I just need to expand on your piece and let us know more about it.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I started making this work shortly after I moved from Wisconsin to California, Oakland. Syrian, and a lot of my family still are residing in Syria and are unable to leave. So through all of these different building sites that you can see, I'm really questioning the mobility that some are granted and then the mobility that some are denied. Within the video, you can see a lot of trial and error in the building process. And these frequent and repeated futile building efforts, and then also along with the different building sites, you can really see the adaptability and then the perseverance of humans. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Naya. Thanks for joining us. Well, I hope you enjoyed the glassblowing demonstration early on when we have Priscilla. Hi, Priscilla Kar Yee Lo. You did an amazing job for the very nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so, this piece, the Kitty Army, we talked about.
Yeah, so the Kitty Army series is based on the 4 virtues and 3 obediences set out by Confucius for Chinese women to follow in order to be good mothers and good wives. And so each of the army represents one of, or each of the member of the armies represents one of the virtues. So there's wifely work, wifely speech, wifely appearance, and wifely integrity, virtue. And so yeah, they, so it's my answer to the system that we kind of are ingrained in culturally and sort of enlisted without our consent, I guess. And ultimately, the army is ruled by the commander, so worthy, virtuous wife and good mother. And so she has a 3D printed and hot casted, hot assembled uterus. So the answer to all this is the kitty cadets in the back is that in the contract actually, and you get one if you get one that you can break open, and it really talks about how we should take it all back and our virtues should be unknown, and we should make up our own virtues and not be confined to our culture and the stereotypes of being an Asian female. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priscilla. We're taking a last look there, and here we're moving on the other side of the gallery. We have the work of Vera Sadakova, who I know is with us as well. Hi Vera, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. Can you please elaborate about this piece?
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Nice. First of all, I want to thank you. It's a great honor for me to be a part of this great exhibition, The United. And I want to tell a little bit about my work. As you can see, it's a composition of glass and concrete objects bearing the image of human hands. And I choose a human hand as a symbol because it's based on its role as an instrument of influence on the surrounding world. With our hands, we can curse the offended, we can give thirst to drink, build a house, and create a masterpiece. And here is, as you can see, I I think migrants are one of the arms of influence on the outside world. They are like a living message and a reminder of the problems and suffering of oppressed peoples. And through my work, I wanted to attract attention to refugees by lighting up the glass hands, and because migrants, they are living among us, and sometimes we even don't know them because they are living silently and they have their problems, they suffering from their problems silently, and sometimes they are waiting for our helping hand, our sympathies shown in action. And I think today people became very selfish, they became very careless, we forgot how to sympathize to others. And through this work, I wanted just to help people to open their hearts, feel more empathy and become warm-hearted, because now migration, it's a very hot topic, it's a very big problem, and became from day to day, it's going harder and harder. And I hope my work will be a kind of reminder that we can be more warm-hearted, we can be polite, kindness, kind, and learn compassion. Sometimes, after all, the planet is round and there is no guarantee that anyone will not be on their place. And I hope we will remember those people around and will help them as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. Thanks so much for joining us. Now we have a piece by John Moran. John, unfortunately, can't join us either. He is an U.S. artist, but lives in Belgium. But John is really interested in pop culture, consumerism, very deep into political and social issues. And although this piece has some glass element, it's interesting how the sculptural size of it becomes really, it's just a very loud message that he's trying to give us. It's just all the elements that he's placing here is contributing to what he calls, a Baroque aesthetics. It's really just that orientation of ornaments and the choice of colors, the choice of textures, that adding extra shine to some of the structures here is just really replying to that need for him to kind of like make a statement louder so we can be heard. There are a lot of references very much into appropriation and in no particular order, and it looks like he grabs from different sources. This is, yes, one of our biggest pieces here at the exhibition. Do you want this, Jaime?
Sure. John's work is very kind of enigmatic and complex, but I think kind of reminds me of my work a little bit, because he's dealing with social issues and cultural disparities and stuff like that. So, and I also work figuratively and sculpturally. So, but I highly respect his work. It's really well made. He scopes parts of the sculpture of the piece and then uses real clothes and treats it with some kind of surface treatment to make it look like glass. But he obviously uses other media as well. His work is amazing. So they're great piece in the exhibition.
Thank you so much, Jaime. Now, right next to me, we have Alan Kimamura. Alan, welcome. Would you like to please talk about about your work?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. So this work is really inspired by family members and familial experiences that have in their in their own ways have really shaped who I am. And as I thought about it, all of those people, all of those experiences were really derived from post-immigration life from Japan to the United States. And, my family, like many others during the World War II era, lost a lot of, their cultural heritage with this kind of extreme need to assimilate here in the United States. But alongside that, there were also these really beautiful things that were maintained, that were archived, that were passed down and taught. So these pieces are really a celebration of just that, those elements of my family members, their experiences, and the way in which they imparted those experiences onto me, and just really a way for me to celebrate that.
Thank you very much, Ellen. And finally, we got a special piece to show you guys. It's a very own one installation in the exhibit. It's by the duo Chris Roman and sorry, I'm pronouncing your last name, and Lauren Cuello. We had the privilege to have Chris joining us. Lauren is already, she moved already to Sweden, so she can be with us. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you through this week and chatting with you here and there a little bit. And I'm just going to pass it on to you. Can you please talk to us about this install?
Yeah, sure. It's been first wonderful to work here with the team. It's been a really generous experience, and it's been lovely to be actually the physical place this art community. And I think what I'm listening to the rest of the artists that were here, place seems to be sort of a vitally important part of all of the way that we're identifying. And so we feel very lucky to be able to create a sort of space. And this work, my collaborator, Lauren Cuello, is Cuban American, and my background is Palestinian Lebanese American. So I think place has been a part of the way that we identify, the way that we build our relationships, and the things that are left and the things that we carry. So what we have made here, built, is a sort of this installation with these branch bodies that we think about as avatars, that these bodies can be borrowed. Three of them in the space are connected to a Zoom link, as we've all kind of been navigating this world in this different way. These different kinds of boundaries around travel and movement, I think, relates to immigrant experiences that maybe now it's shared in a different kind of broader capacity. So we thought a lot about like what is lost when we can't be present with each other, and that these physical bodies are in a space together, and they can be borrowed by others that sort of have access to this Zoom link. They can kind of share this space. The additions to the exhibition are some stories. Lauren's an amazing writer, and she's written 4 short stories. We also have them audibly recorded that will be available through the UGC website. But you can listen in to these different stick-related stories, and they're kind of allegorical, and I think they sort of deal with like the flexibility, the wheel as our ability to move through the world and be flexible and grow and travel, and then the tension of the stopper, the things that hold us back, or traditional ideas, or this sort of tension that we all hold. So we wanted to create something that could be an offering for anybody to sort of use and access and borrow the avatar bodies of these sculptures.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Chris. Sorry. Thank you, Laura. So I just wanted to say one more thing before I pass it to Heather. The inspiration that I had for this project, for this exhibition all along, was really to honor the vulnerable and the victorious stories of all those individuals and families that have worked hard, shown resilience to try to find new homes in unfamiliar places. These are immigrants. So I hope also that you take some time to go and look at these artists' websites, follow them, or just pay attention to the work, because it's just really been a privilege, and it's really such a treat what we have here in the gallery. Thank you. Heather.
Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this. I mean, I feel like I learned new things, and I've been, living with this art for the last 2 years and talking with these artists, and I feel like I learned new things. So thank you so much for joining us. I just want to remind everybody that you can come see the exhibition in person Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the exhibition is going to be up until January 24th, 2021. So you have plenty of time to socially distance, come here. We're not crowded. You can come see the exhibition, no appointment needed. So we hope that you will take the time to check it out, both on our website, but then in person if you're here in Pittsburgh as well. And I just want to say one more big thank you to the incredible artists who really put their heart and souls into the work that they made tonight. Our wonderful jurors who helped see this show come to fruition. And of course, our curator, who has worked tirelessly over the last couple of years to make this show happen. So a big thank you to all of them. And thanks for joining us tonight. Good night, everybody.
Yay.